Today, Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan re-enters her office after the clerk of the National Assembly unseals her office. And there's a pushback from Pengerson and some other union groups on the planned sales of assets and the amendment of the Petroleum Industry Act. Hello everyone, welcome to the program. This is Politics Today live on Channels Television. I'm Sean Kimalo here in Abuja. Let's begin by letting you know what happened today in the National Assembly, where we saw Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan returning to her office at the National Assembly 6 months after a suspension by the Senate. The lawmaker representing Kogi Central, we saw her working into her office after leading a work alongside our supporters from the Central Business District area of Abuja. The lawmaker representing the Kogi Central was saying entering the National Assembly, and when after formally the clerk of the National Assembly was sealing a parliamentary office. A comeback follows a July ruling by the Federal High Court, which described her suspension as excessive and unconstitutional. It was a drama at the National Assembly when she arrived, and Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan saying walking back into her office, perhaps an end to a 6-month suspension that the court had already branded unconstitutional. Supporters are cheering her return, but the senator insists no formal notice is being given about her reinstatement. Take a listen to what she said.
He's not a governor of this place. And he treated me as if I was his servant or I was a domestic staff in his house. It's very unfortunate that at this time, after so many years of democracy, we would have a National Assembly be run by such dictatorship. It's totally unacceptable. As for me, I'm glad to be here. And even though we have been illegally suspended, no day have I hesitated in effectively carrying out my duties as a senator of Kogi Central to the very best of my capacity. I have never, no day went by without me looking out for opportunities, either.
Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan there after she re-entered into her office earlier today. There's so much more to talk about tonight on the program, but that's after we serve you with some of your political roundup stories.
The Central Bank of Nigeria's Monetary Policy Committee has reduced the interest rate by 50 basis points from 27.5% in July to 27%. This followed the decision of the 12 members of the committee at its 302nd meeting. The Governor, Olaye Cardoso, who briefed journalists after the meeting, says the committee's decision to lower the monetary policy rate was predicated on a sustained disinflation recorded in the past 5 months, projections of declining inflation for the rest of 2025, and the need to support economic inflation records. It also reduced the cash reserve requirement to 45% for commercial banks and retained that of merchant banks at 16%. The federal government is calling for a total rephase in the global financial architecture of Africa's mineral resources, saying it was time for its nations to begin to not only finance its mineral sector, but also assert their influence and power in the African products' global supply chains. President Tinubu, represented by Vice President Kashim Shettima, in a roundtable session held in the margins of the 80th session of the United Nations General Assembly in New York City, says it is necessary if the sovereignty of African nations is to be protected, just as he recommended collective action by development allies and partners to bring Africa's mineral economy to reality for the benefit of the continent.
Also, we must set the bull by the horns in financing our future. Never again shall we wait for capital to trickle in. With sovereign funds, blended vehicles, and innovation tools like the Africa Mineral Token. Africa shall finance Africa. To safeguard this sovereignty, we must get our copper, lithium, graphite, gold, and rare earth.
The Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Kudirat Kekereekun, is asking senior advocates of Nigeria designate to uphold integrity and pursue quality advocacy that will transform the nation. At an induction ceremony for the SAN designates, Justice Kekereekun, who was represented by Justice Inyang Okoro, says there is a need for the new members to be admitted into the inner bar to uphold the ethics of the profession and stand against all forms of improper conduct. Civil society organization Yaga Africa is calling on the National Assembly to expedite action on the amendment of the Electoral Act. At a citizens' memorandum on electoral reform in Abuja, the director of programs at the organization, Cynthia Mbamalu, says the recent elections have exposed gaps in the electoral process, ranging from technology failures to logistical challenges.
How do we make our process more credible? How do we enhance transparency? How do we ensure inclusivity in the elections process in such a way that Nigerians can once again trust that their votes will count? And as we move towards the next elections, we're hoping that this reform process is concluded in this year so that we are not delayed when it comes to its implementation.
The Nasarawa State Governor, Abdullahi Sule, has warned against early campaigns ahead of the 2027 general elections. He gave the warning when he received stakeholders from the All Progressives Congress from the southern zone of the state at the government house. The members were led by the former governor of the state, Senator Tanko Almakura, to state their position concerning who succeeds the governor. The governor insists that it is not yet time. The Abia State Governor, Dr. Alex Oti, has effected a minor cabinet reshuffle shortly after swearing in 2 new commissioners and 1 special advisor, charging them to conduct themselves above board as public officers. The governor, who announced the cabinet adjustments during the swearing-in exercise at the government house, sounded a note of warning that his administration has a zero-tolerance policy on corruption, noting that it will not hesitate to sanction those found wanting.
Thanks so much, everyone, for staying with us. That's it. You've been served with your political roundup stories. So let's tell you that today, at the National Counterterrorism Center, on behalf of the Office of the National Security Advisor, they've officially presented 2 kidnapped victims who have been successfully rescued through the non-kinetic strategies in addressing security challenges across Nigeria. It was at a short press conference before reuniting the victims with their family when we saw the national coordinator of the National Counterterrorism Center, Major General Adamu Laka, saying that the life of every Nigerian is priceless. It is that matter which leads us to a major conversation tonight, and it's about Nigeria's Plateau state, where we saw a fact-finding committee submitting its report indicating an investigation into 2 decades of violence, which has now produced a fact-finding panel report with some troubling findings, some of which include that more than 11,700 people have been killed and over 400 communities attacked between 2001 and 2025. But Governor Caleb Mutfwang of Plateau State has pledged that the recommendations will be fully implemented and shared with President Bola Tinubu and security agencies. Well, with nearly 12,000 lives lost, a staggering toll of violence in Plateau State over the last 2 decades or so, where does this leave the people of the state of insecurity in that region and the lives and livelihood of the average person? Let me speak with one of the representatives of the people of Plateau State. I'm being joined tonight by Honorable Yusuf Gagdi. He's a member of the House of Representatives. Thanks so much, Honorable, for joining us tonight.
Thank you, my brother.
Those are troubling figures there. About 12,000 people among 400 communities that have been affected in just about 2 decades. And some of the communities under your constituency are also deeply affected.
Yeah.
What do you make of that report?
Well, it's very unfortunate that a state you belong to, a state that I'm proud of, a state that any day, anytime is where is my home, will be on the front banner of newspapers regarding to killings, regarding to insecurity. I would have wished to discuss Plateau prospect, but unfortunately, this is where we are. It is tormenting, very, very tormenting. And about the report, the only thing I will say is to commend the people that were put in place to go and make these findings, and to hope that they have made far-reaching recommendations that will add value to the livelihood of Plateau people. And for anybody at this time, Shehu, to say anything about that report, you will be economical with the truth. Until and unless you have the opportunity or the privilege of going through the report to see what the committee investigated and what their findings are, then we will begin to talk about that report. For the governor, again, to say he will implement, definitely he must have read the report and feel comfortable with this. But to some of us, until and unless I read the report, then I will make my point of view very clear about the report and its attendant recommendation, as well as its implications.
There are also far-reaching outcomes from that report, one of which includes that there are situations where the source of the attacks, say, have come from neighboring states and communities. The states like Nasarawa, Kaduna, Bauchi, and Taraba have been mentioned as states where the attackers crossed from.
Yes, definitely. At least you are not even talking to someone that is completely ignorant of the security situation in Plateau. When I was Deputy Speaker of Plateau State, I was Chairman Special Committee on Peace, Security, and Reconciliation. I don't think there is this flashpoint, there is this end community that have been witnessing these attacks, killings, that I have not visited personally and that I have not interacted with either their community leaders or religious leaders in that place. If the reports say that the attackers come from neighboring states, it does not mean that, in my opinion, and in my own knowledge of the Plateau situation, particularly regarding to crisis, that it is the people of that neighboring state that attacked Plateau. No. I am just coming back from my village, from my constituency, from Garga area in Kanam local government, the place that I once make reference to you here, that in one day over 147 people were killed by bandits. I visited all the communities, including the places that those people were killed the day before yesterday. I went because another thing happened. Traditional rulers, third class, village, senior village heads were being assassinated, were being kidnapped and killed on a daily basis. Just the day before yesterday, one was killed. Yesterday, one was kidnapped. So, if you look at the nature of Plateau, particularly the area I represent, we boundary state like Bauchi, we boundary state in Kanam, we boundary state like Taraba, Wase, Taraba, in Wase and Kanam local government. And there is a forest reserve situated within this area where the bandits from northwest or northeast, particularly from Zampara axis, have completely or 50% relocated to that forest reserve that was lying there. Farmers are not allowed to farm on that forest reserve in the name of the fact that it's a reserve. So it becomes a safe haven for bandits. It becomes safe haven for criminals. It becomes safe haven for kidnappers. So those criminals that have some of those forests, particularly that game reserve, which is situated along Taraba boundary too. Part of the game reserve is from Taraba. So if the criminals are in those game reserves, they plan their attack, coordinated, and attack civilians in Plateau. So the report is right to say that some of those attacks are coordinated from the neighboring state.
If there is, and partly some of who have led in this country could be held complicit in some of these issues, because on one hand, you are the chair of the committee on Navy.
Armed Force Committee.
Armed Force Committee.
Yeah.
And those who were saying, under Bajabi Amila speaker, there was summit on security. Yes. Under these present National Assembly, there are talks about how to end insecurity in Nigeria, issues of state policing. You've been a former deputy speaker. How can we run a country where innocent people are being killed on a daily basis and we say we do not have a solution? What exactly is going wrong?
I do not belong to a school of thought that said we do not have solution. We have solution. But what I said clearly, and I will keep on saying, is the fact that everybody has his role and responsibility. I am a parliament, and I cannot be exonerated in terms of security complacency. Whenever and wherever there is attack, issue of insecurity within the four angles of Nigeria, no parliament can exonerate himself, because what did the Constitution ask us to do? The Constitution says that as a lawmaker, you are to make laws. And it does not stop there. It says for peace, order, and good governance. Then the primary responsibility, in addition to oversight engagements that the Constitution donates such powers to the parliament, it only first called the parliament to make laws for peace. So if there is not peace, it means something is wrong in the law you are making.
Or you have failed in your duty.
But the question is...
Because if you have not been able to achieve what the Constitution guarantees that you should do,
yes,
that means there's a failure somewhere.
Yeah, if something is wrong, it doesn't mean there is a failure, Sheung. But let me come, I will get there. If I am making laws for order, for peace, and for good governance, who is implementing such laws? And that is why when you listen to me in my previous conversation, even with you and other media platforms, I have always talked about National Assembly passing hundreds and thousands of resolutions regarding to insecurity. Are those resolutions being honored and respected and implemented? That is one thing. Secondly, you are to do budget. We have the responsibility of providing resources to the security agencies to make sure that they function maximally. I will say this, Sean, without any fear of political misrepresentation, that the previous administration and the present administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu have done its best in providing logistic resources to the security agencies to function.
Including welfare and funding.
That I can tell you. Welfare and funding, perfectly I can tell you. I am aware that the budget lines that I go through it for the armed forces on daily basis, where you see their salaries, you see their regular allowance, you see the non-regular allowance. If I go deep into having a conversation on that, you will know that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu have done.
What then is missing?
What is missing, in my own perspective, is agencies of government. Blame, I will be the last person, not because if I see what to blame President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, I cannot blame him, I will. But at this point, I have not seen it. He is the president. He has provided the budget proposal to the National Assembly by what? Strengthening financial allocation to the security sector. And he has done that. It's remaining for the agencies that are responsible for ensuring that those security agencies implement what the president have assented to do their job. I have said this on the floor, and let me say it here. When have you heard, if not recently, that I commend the Chief of Defense Staff for issuing a very strong statement that sounds nice in my ear, and I am monitoring the implementation of that statement, where he said that wherever there is any breakdown of law and order under any command, the command will be held responsible. Prior to Christopher Musa, Chief of Defense Staff, President Chief of Defense Staff, tell me, anybody within the security sector, and again what you are saying about the National Security Advisor, I don't care the problem that people have against him. I can say that with my interaction as a chairman of the armed forces and the effort being made by the Office of the National Security Advisor, he is doing wonderfully very well. Its security matter is not what can be taken on the street to be discussing about. But let me tell you something. If you don't hold strategic security commandants accountable for breakdown of law and order within their own jurisdiction, it will continue to happen unabated.
This takes me to the performance of this government in the eyes of the Nigerian public. And you look at it, on one hand, there are promises being made. Securing this nation, making the lives of the Nigerian people. And you are a chieftain of the APC.
Yes.
And the Nigerian people will be asking questions. Is your party really living up to expectation? Interestingly, your very good brother and friend is now the national chairman of the APC. The pressure is now mounting. Opposition is rising and raising an alarm that this nation is on a dangerous path because your party seems not to be availing Nigerians with the performance of office has been promised at the campaigns.
Sean, what do you expect the opposition to do in an ideal democracy, or even in an unideal democracy? Is to continue to mount pressure and say all conspiracy theory just to make the government be look like as if nothing is being done. But before responding to that question, Let me answer the last question that you asked me. Community policing regarding to security before I come into the performance of this government. I am not an advocate of community policing.
What about state policing?
I don't support, I am not an advocate of state policing. I support community policing. We have a police act that was repealed and reenacted under my own supervision and presented by the leadership of the National Assembly, where community policing, hitherto the reenactment of that police act, have no place in the police act or in any of our laws. We now saw the wisdom in involving community in policing and say that in the police act, there should be community policing at the local government level, which should be chaired by the paramount traditional ruler of that local government and the divisional police officers, and as well as at the state level to be co-chaired by the commissioner of police and the paramount traditional ruler in that state. That provision had been made in the police act. It has not been implemented. That is one. Two, why I am not an advocate of state policing is simply this. Assuming you have INEC, Independent National Electoral Commission. Tell me any election that INEC conducted in Nigeria, that opposition party in the governorship election will not win more than 10 seats out of 36 states in the Federal Republic of Nigeria. There is none. All elections being conducted by INEC, opposition party will win from 1, 10, 15, 16 seats out of the 36 states of the governors of the Federation. Tell me one national election, presidential and national assembly election, that is conducted by INEC in Nigeria, that opposition will not win over 100, 150 to 160 seats of members of the National Assembly. It has always been like that, either ABGA, either PDP, either what AA, and what have you. You will see opposition party in one way or the other winning more than 40, 30% of the seat in the National Assembly. But I ask you today, is there any election conducted in Nigeria either by PDP governor, either by ABGA governor, either by APC governor, that the local government council chairman, two are won by opposition? The answer is no. Tell me, in the legislative arm of the local government, tell me one governor that conduct election in Nigeria that parliament, legislators at the local government council win 2% of the seat of the councillors in that local government. None. Then that is national election. You have opposition winning. State election, you have governors sitting down to make sure that seats are allocated and declared in favor of either their political parties or friends and family. That is a civil power donated to governors. They militarize it and use it the way they want.
But what is then if you are giving this narrative, what then is the solution?
But let me learn.
Yeah.
If you give them state INEC, PLASEC, or state independent electoral commission, and they misuse it without seeing any resemblance of democracy in the election of public office holders at that level, whereas at the national level you can see, how can you trust such a person with the power to control AK-47? What do you think they will do with those powers if you give them? If you give them the power...
So what then is the solution?
The solution is...
If you are against the solution...
Okay, the solution is this. Let us continue to ensure that proper funding is being made to all the security agencies. Fund the police well, fund the military, army, air force, navy very well, fund the national security, the DSS, the NIA, the everything, fund them, give them relatively, accurately what they want to perform. Ensure they account for the money given to them instead of continual purification of security agency, creating this agency today, creating that agency today, whereas the ones that have been created are not adequately funded and they are not adequately oversight to account for the little fund that is voted for them. It doesn't make sense.
Honorable, because we need to wrap up this conversation, the question I asked you about your party, the promises is made,
yes,
and the performance that we're saying, and there is a growing
what kind of fulfillment of promise do you want? Some people may not want to hear this, but I'm not against governors, but let me categorically say this. This man, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, come into power. The day he came into power, he made a bold statement that no president have ever done that in the past. no more subsidy. That was not only a statement. He practicalized and demonstrated that by ensuring that removal of subsidy have equally instigated the revenue generation upward. He does not stop there. State that used to take 4 billion in a month when there was subsidy now take between 10 to 12 to 14 billion. Why are Nigerians not asking, why are state assemblies of the Federal Republic of Nigeria not questioning the performance of their governor if the revenue given to each state has been tripled by the effort of Mr. President in fulfillment of his campaign promises? Why are the governors not justifying that? Look at the program federal government have. They have infrastructural program, roads, buildings, hospitals, and what have you. In addition to that, they come up with people-oriented policy of giving loan to students, assisting families in intervention to get what they eat in form of some allowances, instigating and helping small and medium-scale enterprises to grow. That is what they are doing with the federal government allocation. Now the state governor, that you have 4 billion, now you have 12 billion, 13 billion in a month. Yes, are the infrastructure being done by some, not all, some of those states, commensurate with the money they receive as a result of removal of oil subsidy? Why are we keep blaming one person when people are receiving money from that one person? That's the federal government. That's President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. To the state, he can decide to suffocate them by not releasing. We have seen that during Obasanjo when he was a governor in Lagos. His subvention was not even given to him. Then this man is a Democrat, say that, yes, I have removed fuel subsidy. The revenue have increased, and I have increased your state allocation. What is it happening in the various states of the Federation? Shall tell me, until Nigerians hold their governors accountable to do what Asiwaju is doing at the national level, until me and you and any other stakeholder in Nigeria draw line and become very fearless to speak to the governors to replicate what they are doing with the increase in the allocation that is being given to them, do not hope that we will have any solution to the problem that is going.
We are totally out of time on this conversation, but thanks so much indeed for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Honorable Yusuf Gadi represent Plateau State in the National Assembly. We'll take a break, everyone, but when we return, the unions are raising an alarm, a warning about the planned sale of assets. This will affect the ordinary Nigerian and the state. We'll be talking to the president of the TUC and Pengasan when we return from this break, everyone. Join us again. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us. There are concerns, and there's an alarm that has been raised by some unions, Nupeng and Pengasan. They're rejecting the proposed sale of strategic oil and gas JV assets, an amendment to the Petroleum Industry Act. There was a press conference jointly addressed today in Abuja. I'd like you to listen to a snippet of that, or perhaps we should just jump into the conversation, because the alarm is that if we go ahead in the effort of the federal government, it will harm and it will hurt the economy, it will hurt the interests of the Nigerian people, and NNPC will have a big hit. Let's get to talk with the president tonight, sitting on two chairs, President of TUC, President of Banks, and Comrade Festus Osifo is here for us tonight. It's a pleasure having you, Mr. President.
Thank you so much, Shehu. Thank you for having me. Good evening to viewers.
If we can summarize your position today.
Yes.
There are plans on the amendment of the PIA, that's the Petroleum Industry Act.
Yes.
And also there are plans in selling off some JV assets. I mean, give us an understanding for a lot of Nigerians who do not have a very good understanding of that sector.
Yes.
Because there's a bit of technicalities into it.
True.
But these are Nigerian state-owned assets.
Correct.
Which the federal government is hoping that it wants to raise some funds by selling this JV asset. Am I right?
Yes, Shehu, you are very correct. Currently, so there is a plan vetted by the Ministry of Finance Incorporated and the Ministry of Petroleum Incorporated to sell some of the federal government stake in some of the companies today operated by IOCs. If you could recall that recently, Seplat bought the JV stake of ExxonMobil. Then the same thing as well, Renaissance Africa bought some JV stakes of SPDC, that is Shell Petroleum Development Company. The same breath, Oando Energy and Natural Resources bought the Nigeria Ajib Oil company stake, in NAOC. So now what the government is planning is that, there's always a marriage, a relationship. When you say JV, JV means joint venture. So the joint venture is usually between an IOC or an indigenous oil and gas company and the federal government. So in most cases, federal government have between 55 to 60% in this joint venture. But federal government is not the operator. Federal government does not manage these assets. These assets are being managed or operated by the operating company. In this case, Seplat, Oando, and Renaissance. They are managing these assets on behalf. So in this process, the NNPC Limited is managing the federation shares of this asset on behalf of the federation. So when we say federation, federation is not federal government. Federation is federal, state, and local government. In nutshell, federation is the entire Nigerians. So these shares of the federation is being managed by NNPC. But NNPC is not the operator. The operator are the international and local oil companies. So that has been the arrangement. So now, the crude oil that you hear every day that we produce are largely produced by the national, the local oil company, or what we call the indigenous oil company, and the IOCs. They are actually the one producing largely the crude. But the percentage of government is being administered by NNPC. So what government want to do today, Shehu, is that the 55 to 60% stake of government in these JVs, they want to reduce their stake to between 30 to 35%.
And the law, the amendment of the law will reflect this, isn't it?
No. So this is quite different
this is an
from
arrangement
of the law.
Of the law.
Because the owner today, as prescribed in law, is MOFI, Ministry of Finance Incorporated, and MOPI, Ministry of Petroleum Incorporated. But if you are doing such thing, you are supposed to go to the board. Because today NNPC Limited has a board. We were excited and we were very happy when PIA was passed, and that NNPC will not be operated like a company. But the way we are seeing it today, that is not the way it's being operated. Let me explain the implication of this to you, Shehu, and to Nigerians. Today, the federal government has 49% stake in NLNG, right? You hear every year the dividends that is being paid by NLNG to the Nigerian government. So what the government is planning to do, this is just an illustration. Yeah. So what the government is trying to do is that stake in NLNG, instead of getting the dividends every year for the next 10, 20, 30 years, as long as NLNG remains a going concern, it wants to reduce that stake of 49% to maybe somewhere around 25, 30%. So that dividend you used to get, which is maybe like $1.2, $1.3, $1.5 billion a year, it will no longer be getting it. Instead, it will now be getting maybe somewhere around $500 million per year. So what this is going to do is that today, it may bring instant revenue, but the challenge is that it's mortgaging the future of not just us, but the future of generation.
Do we have an idea of those people who are hoping to get these assets, buy them?
Yes, we are hearing some names, but it's not confirmed yet. We are hearing some names here and there. We are reading in the media who the interested people are, but there is no confirmation
but the question,
to that as of today.
One big question. We now know that some Nigerians are interested. Whether they are the ones pushing to buy the stakes of the federal government, or it's the federal government that is pushing to sell the stakes.
Shehu, is both. Let me just quickly make one quick illustration, Shehu. Yeah. If you remember, when the PIA was passed, it was said that NNPC Limited is going to go public. You remember in one of the sessions we've had here, we talked about that. So NNPC Limited is to go public. So today, government wants to raise money by selling those assets. It's just like, Shehu, you have a company. You are preparing to list this company in the Nigeria Stock Exchange. And as you are preparing to list it, what you ought to be doing is to preserve the assets. But today, you want to strip the assets, then you will not go to Nigerian Stock Exchange. That company becomes relatively valueless. So that is actually the challenge that we are seeing today. If government wants money, Sheung, if government wants to generate revenue, they should sit down with NNPC, come up with a strategy that could list NNPC Limited in the Nigerian Stock Exchange. Once you list it, you sell some shares. So you can sell the shares of the entire NNPC Limited, some shares, you raise money, and you can use that money to fund other projects, rather than balkanizing the assets.
The question here is that, world over, we know that government is a useless manager of resources and being very profitable. And there are several examples. So the government has not shown real ability to be able to make profit of state assets. Now, and we can debate that all day. No. The big question is NNPC that we have modeled or we have even tested in this sample of privatization of assets and all of that, is it profitable? Is it doing well? Is it accountable?
Yes, so understand, let Nigerians understand what these issues are. Today, remember, Pengasan, Nupeng, we have championed that the refineries, government should divest. We are not, understand that, they should divest. They should use the NLNG model. Remember today, government is not the one running NLNG. It is being run by a consortium of Total Energies, ENI, and Shell. They have 51% stake in NLNG, and they are the one running it. So it is just equivalent to government saying that 49% of what I own NLNG I want to sell. Remember, they are not the one running it. So coming down to these assets, it's not NNPC that is running these assets. It's not NNPC that is the operator. The operator of these assets are already private institutions and private companies. Most of these assets before now was run by ExxonMobil, it was run by Shell, and it was run by Nigeria before now was run by ExxonMobil, it was run by Shell, and it was run by Nigeria Ajib Oil Company. Just that government has the federation has some stake in it. Let me tell you what this means, Sheung. Sheung, you know what this means completely? Yeah. If we go in this direction, you hear every month what they share in federation accounts, right? And we know the shares that comes into it. You know, when crude oil price is down, we will be shouting as a country that we cannot defend our naira. So those royalties that come to government, majorly, those profit oil that comes to government, those taxes that come, they are going to reduce drastically once this is done. So it is, if NNPC manages its asset 100%, and government said I want to divest, it's a different thing. But today, NNPC is not the managers of these assets. They are in joint venture with private institutions already. We already have a PPP arrangement there. And these assets are 100% today managed by those operators. But the shares of government is what they want to sell. And if that happens, it will affect the national revenue. It's going to affect even our foreign exchange earning. Because today, the oil and gas industry account, as you know, for over 80 to 90% of our foreign exchange earning. And it's our foreign exchange earning that we use in defending the naira.
Let me ask you quickly. Is this opposition that some of these unions, which some of you are leading, is it opposing this possibility or this supposed planned move, or in the interest of your members, or or national interest?
So you heard everything I've been talking about here. I've not talked about my member. What I'll be talking about here,
the bottom line is that it will affect some members.
Yes, it will.
Because some of them may be out of jobs.
Because they are part of Nigerians. But majorly, if, for example, they sell this stake, for example, our members will also get jobs from these companies. See, for example, ExxonMobil left Nigeria, ExxonMobil JV, they left Nigeria. None of our members lost our job. Are you getting it? When ExxonMobil left Nigeria, when Seplat bought ExxonMobil, when Owando bought Nigeria Ajib Company, none of our members lost our job. But what we are saying in this case, we can protect our members from losing jobs. We can sit down with government tomorrow. They will tell us, well, let's sign an agreement, not your member, we go. PIA has already protected our members, but it is beyond our members, Sheung. It is about Nigerians. Sheung, if Nigeria, for example, the 90% earning that we are earning from crude oil, we can no longer earn it. We are now earning like 30% from it. You know what's going to happen? Our naira today that we are struggling to stabilize is going to go down. And when our naira moves from where it is today to about 2, 3, 4,000, it's going to stimulate inflation, and inflation will affect the entire Nigeria. So it's not solely about our membership.
We know that we have, and there are those who have campaigned on this premise, that we have a revenue problem.
Yes.
Our ability to produce, to raise revenue for necessary national interest and major national projects is problematic.
Yes, correct.
Now, don't you think that it makes sense in this present life of ours in this country that the government sale of this asset, because asset sale is not a new conversation, so that we can focus on some other national project that will benefit and bring more money into the country.
If the Abacha government, if the Babangida government, if they have sold these assets, let's ask ourselves, where are we going to generate the FS from today that we'll use in supporting our export or even our imports?
It's you and some of your colleagues who oppose the sale of refineries under the Yaradua, under the Jonathan government, and you said they should not sell it. Now, the refinery is working.
Our position has been this.
Yeah.
It's been very clear. Over the last 15 years, Pengasan and Nupeng position has been very clear. I have said it in your studio and in other programs for the 18th time. We have advocated that government should bring about the NLNG model. What is NLNG model? The public-private partnership. You give 51% shares to the private, while you keep 49. That has been what we have advocated. Is that not privatization? That has been our position, Sheung.
But what about the sale of refineries?
Sheung, that's what I'm saying. About the refinery, that what we have been advocating over the years
is not that outright
government should, yes, because the reason is this, Sheung, if you strip it 100%, this is what we don't want. Government should leave control. NNPC should give out 51% control of the refinery and allow the private people to come in. When you have 51% control of any company, you are the one that manages the company. But coming down to what we are discussing, Sheung, this is relatively different. Today, if government wants to generate revenue, Sheung, don't strip these national assets. This is the asset that has been feeding the federation since oil was discovered. This is the asset that has been feeding the federation since we led the era of Granite Pyramid. What we are saying, government wants to generate revenue. It's okay. Work in the next 3 months. Go and list NNPC Limited in the stock exchange. You heard at a time when Saudi Aramco listed 5% of their shares in their stock exchange. They generated trillions of USD. So list maybe 20-30% shares of NNPC. If government lists 20-30% shares of NNPC in stock exchange in the next 3 months, they are going to make ×5 of the revenue that they are planning to make today. So the question is this: if you want to move these assets to the stock exchange, why will you balkanize it? By the time you balkanize it and you are not moving to the stock exchange, it becomes valueless. So, Sheung, you have a company. You are planning to list that company in stock exchange in the next 2 months. And today, you have 5 offices. You have sold like 3 of them, right? All the equipment in your offices, you have stripped them naked. You have sold them. When you are going to stock exchange, would anybody buy those shares again? What will be the value of the shares?
Give me a moment.
Government will make more money.
Yeah.
If today they list NNPC in the stock exchange, they make more money than they are going today.
Give me a moment, comrade. We'll go on a break. And when we come back, oil money is a problem money. Take my word for it. We've seen that since the oil boom, it's been a doom. A lot of lessons to learn from that. But beyond all of that, the interest of the nation, of the Nigerian people, is at stake here. I will conclude our conversation after this break. With comrade Festus Sifo, who is on one leg, president of TUC, and another leg, president of Pegasus, and one of the unions opposing the planned sales of federal government JV assets in the oil and gas sector. Thanks so much, comrade. Quickly, before I go to the other leg of what you were pushing with you and your colleagues today, I blame you and your colleagues. You promised me, comrade, on this program, that you will hold the government accountable. You will hold the NNPC by the trouser in ensuring that the refineries that we got a $1.5 billion US in loan facility to fix, that it will work. Where is that refinery today?
Sheung, I listened to a commentary in your station about a week ago or thereabout. Today, you know, we visited the refinery. Sheung, I'm an engineer of over 20 years standing, all right? And I understand how mechanic works. I've worked in the private sector all my life, and I've practiced engineering all my life. So I know a system that is working, and I know a system that doesn't work. I listened to that said the refinery never worked. Sheung, it is not correct. The refinery worked. There is a difference between a piece of equipment working and a piece of equipment working efficiently. You know, in engineering, these are two different things. So what happened was that the refineries were shut down. Not because the refineries were not working, but it was actually because what you were feeding into the refinery was crude oil, right? It wasn't water. So when you feed crude from this end, that's the input. Then you are going to get the output from the other end. So when they compare what they were feeding in and what they were getting at the end of the day was not commensurate. So not that it wasn't functioning, but it wasn't functioning optimally. Because at the end, when you are feeding in, let's assume, you are feeding in crude that costs, let's say, $10 million into the refinery. And at the end, you are getting a product that is worth, let's say, about $9.5 million, which means that you are running on a loss. So that was exactly what happened. Not that the refineries were not working. I mean, we paid a visit to the new GCU of NNPC Limited, and we put that question to him, Sheung, that why were the refineries shut down? Why are the refineries not working currently? And he told us that this was actually the reason. That not that the refineries were not working, but it was the material balance. The material you feed into the refinery, what you are getting out, is a bit reduced in terms of value. So that was why they shut it down in order to re-examine the strategy and all that.
Which one is what we have asked? The old or the new?
No. It wasn't about the new, if you remember. It wasn't the new. What they said, I mean, the one that was working at that then was the old. But there was also a technology gap, Sheung. When those refineries were working, before they were shut down almost 15, 20 years ago, what happened was that the old refinery was feeding product into the new refinery. Because the old refinery has old technology. So it was feeding product into the new refinery. So the new refinery will now produce the PMS, for example, that will give us the right octane number. But they wanted a quick fix. That, okay, let's separate both of them. Instead of the old feeding the new, let's make the old independent. And that is why
they were
this
buying
material balance challenge.
Crack C5, and they were from Indorama, from what we understand.
I said it in your studio.
And and blend it with naphtha to get us what we want.
Yes.
That was a quick fix, isn't it?
Yes. I said it in your studio. That was actually what was happening in terms of PMS. But the old refinery as at then was producing DPK and AGO. But overall, you are in a business to make money. Refinery business, the margins are very low. The margins are very small.
When is the refinery likely to come back to
No, now they are reviewing the overall strategy. What we have advised them, Sheung, is what we have advocated for in the last 20 years, Sheung, almost 20 years. And that has been government. Bring refiners. Give them 51% stake of the refinery. When you give them 51% stake, they become the largest shareholder.
And the owner.
They will be able to run the refineries while you are just idle.
We are totally out of time. 30 seconds if you can hit the nail on the head on the amendment of the PIA.
Yes. So part of what they want to do in the PIA today, the NNPC Limited is owned by Ministry of Petroleum Incorporated and Ministry of Finance Incorporated. What they want to do is that they want to remove the Ministry of Petroleum Incorporated, and NNPC will not be solely owned by the Ministry of Finance Incorporated. Remember, NNPC Limited is a technical institution for the oil and gas.
What's the sense behind that?
Ask me. We are also asking the same question. What is the sense behind this? Because Ministry of Petroleum, there you have the technical expertise of people who understand the oil and gas business. NNPC Limited is not CBN. It's not a bank that you just leave for Ministry of Finance Incorporated to manage. That's one of the changes amongst others.
Comrade Festus Osifo is the president of TUC and Pengasa. Thank you so much indeed.
Thank you so much
for raising the alarm. Let's hope that reason will prevail and our nation will benefit rather than the interests of a few. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. I'm Sean Wakimale. God bless Nigeria.